Much of the news. It's like no one wants to take a break. I guess Mark Zuckerberg was like, you know what? You guys haven't talked about me or my company in a while. I'm sick and tired of Elon getting all the headlines. So here, I'm going to make some. I know that's what it was. I know it was professional jealousy on his part. He was like, you guys talk about Elon Musk and X all the time. You never talk about Facebook. You never talk about Meta. You never talk about Mark Zuckerberg. Well, now I'm going to give you something to talk about. And we're going to get into that here today. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic begins in 3, 2, 1. Mark Zuckerberg just threw Kamala Harris and Joe Biden right under the bus. The big yellow school bus. And who doesn't love a big yellow school bus? Well, today, I guarantee Kamala Harris and Joe Biden don't, especially since Mark Zuckerberg just drove over their entire future, their entire campaign, everything they wanted to accomplish has just gone up in flames again because of the Facebook founder and CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, who said, you know what? I think I'm going to come clean on 3 of the biggest scandals, 3 of the biggest quote unquote conspiracy theories, which we like to call spoiler alerts, because as we've learned on the Mark Kaye Show for years, as we've learned on Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, as we've learned just by being concerned, combative conservatives who are well-informed and have a brain, we see that these conspiracy theories that the press reports on are actually just spoiler alerts, meaning give it 6 months. Give it a year. The things we say today that seem just bat crap crazy in the end turn out to be, well, 100% factual and true. And speaking of bat crap crazy, we got a lot of stuff. We're going to get through the Mark Zuckerberg. I have the whole letter right here. This is the letter that Mark Zuckerberg wrote to the Honorable Jim Jordan, our good buddy from Ohio, who is the chairman of the Committee on the Judiciary. And it's a confession. He basically just confessed to being a horrible, horrible person. He basically confessed to. Well, I don't want to spoil. I'll get in. Well, I swear to God, we're gonna get in. This is gonna take an hour. I hope we have enough time left in the day. This letter is gonna take an hour in and of itself, and we do have other stuff we want to talk about. RFK Jr. is making waves with Wales. I'll tell you the latest story. And I got to be honest with you, I used to think this made him quirky and bizarre, but now that he's on Team MAGA, I kind of think it actually adds to his mystique. And I think every time one of these stories comes out, I think to myself, this guy, why was this guy ever a Democrat? Every time one of these bizarre stories about animals and killing and RFK Jr. pops up, I always think to myself, this guy was always conservative. This guy was always MAGA. This guy was always a hold my beer, conservative, Donald Trump loving MAGA, devil may care kind of American patriot. And we're getting the stories to prove it. Plus, speaking of Democrats who are now MAGA, another one bites the dust. Doo-doo-doon, doon, whoo! Another one bites the dust. And another one's gone. What am I talking about? Oh, that's a good song. Tulsi Gabbard has pledged her allegiance to Donald Trump in the upcoming campaign and has pledged also her support, which is even more important. So we're going to like I said, there's so much to get to, but I want to begin with something really that just entertains me and makes me feel good about the United States of America. And it's Jen Psaki on MSNBC with Don Lemon realizing live and on camera that nobody likes Kamala Harris. Her former boss or her former boss's, I guess, former vice president. What doesn't matter. Jen Psaki worked in the White House as press secretary for Joe Biden. Kamala Harris was vice president under Joe Biden. They're all in cahoots. They're all colluding to destroy the country. It doesn't matter who worked for who. Well, they're all just terrible, horrible, no good, very bad people. And Jen Psaki, she like a rat off of the Titanic, man. She jumped ship and she got into one of those dinghies and rowed herself to safety. Rowed. R-O-W-E-D, not R-O-A-D. She rowed herself to safety and is now sitting pretty at MSNBC, where I guess she can't be indicted or implicated in anything. Well, until you hear this Mark Zuckerberg letter coming up a little later on today. But she had Don Lemon on her show, and man, she was so annoyed. She almost turned as red as her hair. The redhead turned red fuming mad when she found out that nobody really likes Kamala Harris, and even fewer people even know who the hell she is.
Was there anything, what did they think about Harris? Did they have anything to say about her?
They did have, listen, it depends on where you are. We went to a number of different battleground states in Pennsylvania, Ohio, we were in Michigan.
I'm sorry, Don Lemon. Ohio is not a battleground state. Ohio, it was at one time, but now it's just like Florida. It's firmly red. I digress. Here's the funny part.
Indiana, on our way, obviously, Illinois, on our way to Chicago. And it sort of depended on where you were. Pennsylvania, well, I shouldn't say Pennsylvania, I should say Philadelphia, was a bit more liberal, and the answers to the questions about her and him were quite different. But for the most part, in Pittsburgh or in the Jersey Shore and in Atlantic City, in Ohio especially, many people did not know who she was. Right? They weren't familiar with her. So I think she has to reintroduce herself to the public. But for him, I think that they thought that he's better for the economy. And that, again, that he brought money into the community or that he was on black people's side.
Okay, now, if you're listening to the podcast, I'm so sorry that you cannot see the disgusted and angry look on Jen Peppermint Psaki's face as Don Lemon explains to her that in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a very important battleground state, on the Jersey Shore in New Jersey, which is getting redder by the day, in all of these places that he went, some people didn't even know who Kamala Harris was. A lot of people thought Donald Trump was better, but some people, they didn't know who Kamala Harris was. They don't know who she is. So I think she needs to reintroduce herself. Or how about introduce herself? Because let's be honest, she has not done a single interview. She has not sat down with anyone. She's not sat down and talked to the press. She's not said anything about her platform. She hasn't even put a platform up on her website. And this continues to be a sticking point with the media. And Jen Psaki had another guy on her show who's popped up everywhere. This guy, Ian Sams, he's just this smarmy little dude who's a surrogate. He's like a mouthpiece for the Kamala Harris campaign, rather. And he gets peppered all the time with this interview question. Listen to what he told CNN.
And one of the places that she may be able to speak to her views on a variety of issues is in an in-depth interview with a journalist. This is something that she has not done since President Biden stepped away. I admit, as a member of the press, this is something that we place a priority on. But I think there are a lot of anxious Democrats, there are a lot of independents and undecideds across this country who would like to hear more from her in more depth on specific issues. When is that going to happen?
Well, as the vice president said, and I think you all know, she said that she's going to schedule an interview by the end of the month. I think everybody can look at a calendar.
It's the end of the month. TikTok. It's the end of the month. It's the 27th of August where I sit, which means you've got, let's see, there's 31. So it's Tuesday, you got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Now, we heard from her earlier that she was going to do an interview by the end of the month. What he just said there, and I don't know if you caught it, what he said in that clip was she will schedule an interview by the end of the month. So even if there's no promise that we're going to hear from Kamala Harris. I mean, I'm okay not hearing from Kamala Harris. The less I hear from Kamala Harris, the better it is for me personally. But not only will she not do an interview, he's now saying the plan is for her to schedule an interview. So she could schedule an interview that airs next week, but he can come back and say, well, she scheduled it in August. She scheduled it before the end of the month. It won't air till after Labor Day or sometime mid-September. Kamala Harris is hiding. The debate is September 10th. The debate is in 10 days, and she is whittling away every opportunity she has to speak to the American people, to make her case known to the American people. Don Lemon is running around the country begging for somebody to please, for the love of God, support Kamala Harris so I don't look like I'm wasting my life away. And he can't. And he's not in Florida. He's not in Oklahoma. He's not in Arkansas or Alabama or Tennessee. He's in New Jersey. He's in Pennsylvania. He's going to the battleground states. He's going to the swing states, and he's finding people there that are all Kamala who? That's what happens when you don't get people watch TV. People go on the internet. People listen to the radio. People shouldn't probably listen to more of my podcast, but people go out there and listen to all of these media outlets, and they don't see Kamala Harris talking. So they have no idea who she is. You know who they do see? Donald Trump. Why? Because Donald Trump is out there single day. Donald Trump is out there single day. Just yesterday, Donald Trump woke up, went to Arlington, Virginia, where he attended a service for the 3rd anniversary of the bombing at Abbey Gate, which killed 13 American men and women who were serving in the U.S. Marine Corps. He placed a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier. Then he went to a Vietnamese restaurant where he hung out with some Vietnamese people. And he talked, and they loved him. And he walked into the Vietnamese restaurant, and these people exploded. You would have thought that it was, well, Donald Trump walking in. For whatever reason, the Vietnamese community loves Donald Trump, probably because they remember the Vietnam War and the communists and the Viet Cong, and they're like, we don't want any of that anymore. We want capitalism. We want freedom. We want liberty. We want money. We want Donald Trump back in office. Then he wasn't even done. After that, he went and gave a speech with Tulsi Gabbard, a special guest, at the National Guard Festival or whatever, some National Guard meeting. He went up there and he gave a speech, a policy speech. It was incredible. We have some clips from that coming up. And then he went and dropped in on a campaign, one of his campaign headquarters, and brought them some pizzas. That's what Donald Trump did yesterday. Kamala Harris, what did she do? Nothing. Oh, wait a minute. No, she didn't do anything. Joe Biden, President of the United States, on the 3rd anniversary of the bombing at Abbey Gate in Afghanistan, Kabul. What did he do? Oh, nothing. Actually, that's not true. That's not true. Joe Biden's family went to go get coffee, and they manhandled a bunch of people. And they had like I don't know if it was the Secret Service or whatever, but these people, they just went out to get coffee, and the people running around the street got manhandled by them. Listen to this.
I'm a little confused, John. I know the president took vacation.
Hold on, wait a minute. That's John Kirby. Here it is. Lefty's Coffee.
The First Lady and her family made a surprise visit to Los Olivos today.
Out of the right way. Move! Now! Go!
Okay, that is the relaxing little hamlet of Los Olivos, California, near where Joe Biden was vacationing. And the Bidens, Hunter Biden and Jill Biden are walking around doing some shopping. And you heard that guy screaming and yelling at the locals, out of the way, move! And he's literally pushing people out of the street so they could get by. It's really weird.
Some chaotic moments in the usually quiet community of Los Olivos Friday afternoon as the Bidens hit the town. Dr. Jill Biden visited Los Olivos for a little shopping, accompanied by her son Hunter Biden and family, along with more than 10 Secret Service agents and local law enforcement. Biden's surprise visit drew a small crowd and was warmly received.
A small crowd, but small crowd is it drew a small because it's Joe Biden and nobody really. Listen to this. This is the coffee shop lady. This is my favorite part.
Cynthia Sixto tells me Hunter Biden stopped in with his kids.
It was pretty cool. He came in with his family and he ordered lemonade, a matcha, and iced vanilla lattes. And
I would have thought he ordered Coke. Oh, wait. There you go. Thank you very much. No, anyway, here we go.
Came into Lefty's.
During the family visit, the group stopped at several stores, including in Larkin, Global Eye, and Kahuna's. The Bidens were in town around 30 minutes before driving off. In Los Olivos, Juliette Lamar, KSBY News.
Okay, so there you go. So the Bidens, they clamp down on Los Olivos. They manhandle the residents. They buy some stuff for 30 minutes. Hunter Biden goes to buy some lemonade and some chai tea lattes at a place called Lefty's, which is the most appropriate place I could think of for somebody, on the left to go. And that's what Joe Biden's been doing. He hasn't been going to Arlington National Cemetery to place wreaths on the tomb of the unknown soldier on the 3rd anniversary of the Abbey Gate bombings. He hasn't been talking to the National Guard at their anniversary. He hasn't been dropping off pizzas at the campaign headquarters. Oh, oops, he doesn't have a campaign headquarters. It doesn't matter. He's not doing anything. Why? Because he knows his time is done. And Kamala Harris is following in his footsteps, which is really annoying the media. Here's more Democrats on CNN arguing about whether or not Kamala Harris should get up in front of a camera and answer some gosh darn questions. This is Julie Rodzinski.
I think it was kind of an unforced error. I don't know why they've made this into such a big deal. Had she been giving interviews throughout the course of the last couple of months or the last 6 weeks, I think this would not be that big of a deal. Look, if I were in her shoes, I would do an interview with local press. She's traveling to Georgia. She's traveling all over Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and other places. And I think the best thing for her to do would be to speak to local media in those states, because we know that media is very much trusted when it's local media, the people that are neighbors with the very people whose votes she wants.
All right, so while you're traveling around the country, Kamala Harris, why don't you stop in and do some local news reports. When those news reporters show up at your event, why don't you sit down and do an interview with one of them? Seems like good advice. Listen to what the CNN woman, listen to what she feels about that advice from Julia Rudzinski, Democrat strategist.
So I don't know why she hasn't been
doing. Okay, wait, Julie, I got to ask you about that though, because you know what's going to happen if she picks local media, which is local media is great in some regards because they speak very much to issues in these battleground states. And we know that obviously matters very much, right? This really comes down to a handful of states. But those bigger issues, the familiarity with her record, both in the Senate as a candidate, as vice president, that's not something that a local reporter is going to have a handle on. We've all been local reporters. We've all been political reporters here in Washington. We know the difference.
Well, first of all, I disagree with you. I think a good local reporter is very well versed in national issues.
Look what she's basically saying. We're better than they are. The woman on CNN's like, what you don't want the local reporters interviewing Kamala Harris because, well, they're just local reporters, and sure, they know locally what's going on, but they're not well versed on national issues, are they? And this one woman's like, yeah, good reporters are. Any reporter locally is, and if they're interviewing the vice president of the United States, a potential candidate for president, or a candidate rather to potentially be the president, I would assume that they know a little something about her. I mean, unless they're one of those people in Pittsburgh or in New Jersey that Don Lemon was talking to, and they've never even heard of Kamala Harris. But that's typical CNN elitism. When we say the media are elitists and they think they're better than everyone, that's exactly what they're talking about. She goes, well, look, national reporters are nowhere near as well versed as us. Local reporters are nowhere near as well versed as us. National political reporters, like they're good for, talking about local stuff, like the opening of a new library, or if there's a local accident, they can do the traffic and the weather locally, but they can't talk to Kamala Harris. They should leave that to the experts like us here at CNN. Here's what Julie Rudzinski said.
I'm not suggesting that she do those interviews to the exclusion of doing a big sit down with a network or a big cable news interview. But the point is that I think she all along should have been, and I would urge her to continue doing those local interviews as well.
Basically, she's saying, just do something. Do anything. Speak, woman. Speak to the people. Talk to these people. These people are begging to know what you're all about. These people are dying to know who you are. These people are flocking to Donald Trump because he talks to reporters every single day. He makes appearances every single day. He rallies every single day. All we do when we turn on the TV is see Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. So when it comes time to vote, we're going to be like, you know what? We know about Donald Trump. We don't know about this other woman. Half the people don't even know that she's vice president. And apparently Kamala Harris is waiting for the debate, which, by the way, there may not even be one now. I booked a trip to Philadelphia. I'll be very angry if there's no debate. I booked a trip to Philadelphia. I cashed in some of my miles so I could fly for free. I got a hotel room, which was not free. I hired a videographer so I could have some help an extra pair of hands on the ground to shoot some video and get some man on the street type footage. So it's not just me running around. I made we're going to do a live Patriot meet and greet. So if there's any Patriots in the Philadelphia area, mark down September the 11th. It's a Wednesday. We're going to find a nice watering hole locally in the historic district, and we're going to go hang out, and we're going to get to know each other. Any Philadelphia Patriots or anyone in New Jersey, I mean, if you're in the area, if you want to make the trip, great. September 11th, we'll be getting together for a little Patriot meet and greet. The location time TBD. I just got to find a cool bar near my hotel. But anyway, that's coming up. And I did this whole trip, and now there may not even be a debate because Kamala Harris is trying to change the rules, and Donald Trump is like, no, you can't change the rules. Apparently, here's what apparently happened. Was Donald Trump came forward and said, look, we agreed to this September 10th debate with ABC News. And we agreed to this debate because we agreed with Joe Biden because he was the candidate. Joe Biden dropped out. So we didn't agree to debate Kamala Harris. Why don't you come debate us on Fox News on September 4th? Kamala Harris was like, I am not going on Fox News ever. So they agreed again on September 10th, ABC News, but they wanted the same CNN rules. Donald Trump did such a great job at the CNN debate. You may remember that was Joe Biden's final debate. That was the debate where Donald Trump dominated so hard that Joe Biden was forced by his own party to leave the world, basically, of politics. After so many years in political life, the people that put him there said, we're now removing you. You can leave on your own accord, or we're going to use the 25th Amendment or whatever, or we're just going to publicly embarrass you, whatever it is you want, however you want to play this game, Joe, but you're going to go. And so Joe Biden did. He left. That was because that was all due in part to Donald Trump's debate. So, of course, Donald Trump said, we'll debate you, but we want the same rules. No microphones on while the other person's talking, no live studio audience, no notes. No, that's what did Joe Biden in. There was no live studio audience. The microphones were shut off when the other guy was talking, and there were no notes. And with those three rules in place, Donald Trump was able to dominate because he doesn't need a live studio audience. He doesn't need the microphone on when he's trying to talk, and he doesn't need any notes. He's got it all right up here. Well, Kamala Harris doesn't like that. She wanted a sit-down debate with notes because, well, we know how Kamala Harris is. We know how she is without notes.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? Hard work is good work. Hard work is good work. Well, it's just plain weird. Everybody needs to be woke.
So they wanted to avoid that at all costs, which is probably smart. And so they're now trying to change the rules of the debate. Plus, ABC News went on with Tom Cotton the other day, and they just were so unfair, and they were just so biased against him that Donald Trump said, I'm not going on ABC. First of all, the rules need to be the same as the CNN rules. And second of all, I'm not going on this network anyway because they're just so ridiculously biased. Why would I do that? Well, yesterday on MSNBC with Jen Peppermint Psaki, Ian Sams was asked about the debate, and here's what he said.
Well, the vice president thinks that the American people deserve a real debate where the candidates can go back and forth in real exchanges to talk about the issues that matter and to respond in real time to what you would see from President Trump, outlandish lies and attacks. And so we want that opportunity for the American people to see Donald Trump for who he is. Not censored, not muted, but the unfettered guy that he is going to be if he becomes president again, especially now that we know that the Supreme Court has given him the authority to have unfettered power.
I feel like we're pretty clear on who Donald Trump is. I don't know that Donald Trump holds back at all. I've heard him on rallies. I've heard him on town halls. I heard him on Elon's X space for 2 hours. I know Donald Trump's opinions about Kamala Harris and other people. Donald Trump doesn't wait until a debate to really let people know what he thinks about them, does he? I feel like we're all pretty clear. Comrade Kamala, Sleepy Joe. We know she's terrible, the worst vice president in history, the worst president in history. It's just so bad what they've done. They've destroyed our country. I mean, Donald Trump, I don't think he pulls any punches. I feel like on a debate stage, he's not acting any differently. And I feel like this would be a good opportunity for Kamala Harris to make her case known. You know how else she could do it was with an interview, but she still hasn't scheduled one. And checking the clock. Yep, the end of the month is drawing near. We're going to get to Donald Trump in just a minute, but first I have to get to this Mark Zuckerberg letter because this is crazy. Oh, and before I do that, I got to remind you about the markkaysshop.com, where all of our fantastic Brighter Future merchandise is available for purchase. America's future will be, well, I'll let Trump tell you.
America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer, greater, and more united than ever before.
Yeah. Damn right it will be. And so if you want to get any of our items that have that iconic quote on it, as well as the Mark Kaye Show logo, the Mark Kaye signature logo, you can do so right now by going to markkaysshop.com. Markkaysshop.com. There's the signature hoodies, there's t-shirts, there's a capron. If you click here, you can get to the extended collection, which includes the very popular ladies' Brighter Future tank top in fashion colors, the men's Brighter Future tank top in fashion colors as well. And somebody pointed out we have a white one, which is weird because it's also white. So we're going to have to, it's white on white. So we're going to have to, don't order the white one. Don't order the white. I don't know why that's in there. We're going to get rid of it. But we've also got other great items too. Any and all items that you want. The Mark Kaye signature line. There's a blue star shirt from the Mark Kaye signature line, which I've noticed there's been a real uptick. And maybe I might have to move it to the top of the shop. But this is a blue shirt with dark blue stars all over it. I actually have to order one of these for myself, and it has the Mark Kaye signature logo on it. And there's been a run on these shirts. In fact, it looks like large is sold out, which is okay because I know we have a lot of extra large people who listen to this podcast. But it's a fly looking shirt, the Mark Kaye signature rope cap, which for whatever reason I forgot to put on my head today. So let me remedy that. This is also a very popular item featuring the Mark Kaye signature logo on this fantastic, really luxe Hugh Hefner style, Donald Trump style rope Navy baseball cap. It's really nice. I wear mine constantly. Anyway, Mark Kaye shop.
America's future will be.
Wait a minute. What happened? There we go. MarkKayShop.com is where you go. MarkKayShop.com to get all your Mark Kaye merchandise needs. All right. So let's get to this letter because this letter is crazy. This came out last night. Where were we at? We had I don't know. Oh, I was at my kid's school because we had, it was open house at my kid's school, and I like to go to the open house, and I like to meet all their teachers, and I play a little game with myself. I go, which ones are conservative? And I try to figure out, I go into their classrooms, and I look around, I'm like, let's see if there's any signs here that these people are conservative. And sure enough, there were some really good signs. For example, there was one teacher that had the join or die flag on his wall, which I thought was a pretty solid sign. Another one had not only the American flag, but the Florida flag in his room as well. So I thought that was, and one of them just had in the back of the room a big sign that said FJB. Just kidding. That didn't happen. But anyway, so we came home from the open house and the news broke that this Mark Zuckerberg letter hit the wire. Mark Zuckerberg, August 26, 2024, to the Honorable Jim Jordan, chairman of the Committee on the Judiciary at the House of Representatives. He wrote they call it a letter, but to me, this was an admission of guilt. It was actually two things. The first thing this was an admission of guilt. And I'm going to read it to you so you can see that he pled guilty basically to 3 very terrible, horrible things that we knew all along were going on with Facebook and Meta and Mark Zuckerberg, but that they denied. Mark Zuckerberg denied, I think he denied it to Congress, which may involve some kind of perjury charge. We're going to have to dig in and take a look at that. But he denied all of these things. And now he's like, you know what? Actually, let me just come clean. I'll read you the letter and then we're going to analyze it for several minutes. Chairman Jordan, it begins. I appreciate the committee's interest in content moderation on online platforms. As you are aware, Meta has produced thousands of documents as part of your investigation and made a dozen employees available for transcribed interviews. Further to our cooperation with your investigation, I welcome the opportunity to share what I've taken away from this process. Here's where it gets really good. There's a lot of talk right now around how the U.S. government interacts with companies like Meta. Remember, Meta is the new parent company of Facebook. And I want to be clear about our position. Our platforms are for everyone. We're about promoting speech and helping people connect in a safe and secure way. As part of this, we regularly hear from governments around the world and others with various concerns around public discourse and public safety. In 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, which almost was the name of my show. I almost called it Humor and Satire, but I decided on the Mark Kaye Show. And this is 100%. I have so much firsthand experience with this, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. So what Mark Zuckerberg's doing in this letter is saying, look, I'm going to come clean with you. The White House, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the Democrats, they pressured us. They contacted us. They pressured us and they said, you've got to censor this COVID information. We don't care if it's satire. We don't care if it's humor. You got to get it off your platform or else. They pressured them to do it. And if they didn't, they were very frustrated. And when the White House is calling you and putting political pressure on you, venting their frustration, you know that what that means. That means that they were getting threats with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration. And we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. Now, this is interesting because when it was Joe Biden doing it, they didn't push back. They just took the crap down. Now he's saying in the future, we will push back against this kind of stuff. Well, if Donald Trump's president, that means that he's pledged to push back against Donald Trump, but it doesn't matter because Donald Trump would never ask him to censor information. Now, that's the first thing. Here's the second thing about this letter that Mark Zuckerberg is coming clean about, and it involves the Unterhey Eidenbay Aptop lay, which if you speak code, you know what I just said. In a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. That fall, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. That means they looked at the New York Post story about Hunter Biden's laptop, which was 100% accurate, and said, ooh, suppress that, shadow ban that, censor that, do not let anyone share that, and if they do share it, stop them. I still believe to this day that I was shadow banned and censored for sharing that story. I still believe for this day that my account is no longer being seen by as many people because of how I shared that story. And now here he is saying, oopsie, we probably shouldn't have done that. In fact, he says, it's since been made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. We've changed our policies and processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. For instance, we are no longer temporarily demoting things in the U.S. while waiting for fact checkers. Also, fun fact about fact checkers. They're not fact checkers. They're just a bunch of liberal mother checkers that are trying to fact around with your stuff. I have been fact checked multiple times on Facebook. I have been demoted, demonetized, canceled. I've been all of those things. In fact, I have a new book coming out, which I was hoping to get out this week, but because of the DNC last week and because I'm a one-man show nowadays, it took me a little bit longer. But I'm gonna do my best I'm gonna stay up all night if I have to get this thing in the marketplace tomorrow, because this book that I'm writing is all about this. It's all about how conservatives are targeted by big media companies, how conservative businesses are taken down and destroyed by big media companies and their lopsided censorship, by their demoting of stories that, oops, we're just getting it fact checked, when lo and behold, they were factual all along. And every time that I got fact checked, luckily, there was a link to the story, or there was the fact checker's name was available. And I reached out. I would fact check the fact checkers. I would reach out to them. I would go on Twitter. I would find their email addresses and I would write them and be like, dude, why did you fact check this story this way? Why did you put this strike on my account? Why did you tell Facebook I'm lying when clearly I'm not? And 9 times out of 10, they had no good reason. One time a guy told me that if I changed an exclamation point, my headline was something like, I don't know, Biden lied, exclamation point. Biden lied, exclamation point. And he argued with me that I didn't have proof that Joe Biden lied. And I argued with him, he didn't have proof that Joe Biden didn't lie. And so he said to me, look, if you change the exclamation point to a question mark on your title, we'll remove the fact check. So Biden lied became Biden lied, and all of a sudden it was okay. Kid you not, true story. The amount of reach, the amount of people I lost, the amount of money that cost me, and to this day, as I said before, I don't believe my account has been 100% restored to its full power and potential. And all I had to do was change an exclamation point to a question mark. That's who these fact checkers are. They're not fact checkers at all. They are liberal media allies and agents who are out there trying to thwart, distort, and demote, as he pointed out in his letter, conservative information online. point number 3. I feel like Rush Limbaugh. This is my favorite thing Rush Limbaugh did. Rush Limbaugh was amazing, by the way. Side note, I loved when he took the papers and he just did this into the microphone. He didn't need to. He just wanted to. He's like, all right, point number 3 of the letter, which I hold in my formerly nicotine-stained hands. You know. This was, like, half of the Rush Limbaugh show was just this. It was ASMR before ASMR. ASMR was cool. All right, here we go. This is the third part of this that Mark Zuckerberg's coming clean about, and it's his $400 million donation to the Joe Biden campaign in 2020. Not that he made it directly to the campaign, because that would be illegal, but here's what happened. Apart from content moderation, I want to address the contributions I made during the... I'm sorry, it just makes me laugh. It just makes me laugh. I want to address the contributions I made during the last presidential cycle to support electoral infrastructure. The idea here was to make sure local election jurisdictions across the country had the resources they needed to help people vote safely during a global pandemic. I made these contributions through the Chan Zuckerberg initiative. So if Mark Zuckerberg had just made a donation by himself, he would have been limited to $2,800. The maximum single person donation. If he and his wife gave, it would have been $5,600. $5,600 is nowhere near enough money to try to, push an election over the edge for a particular candidate. So he decided, how do I do that? Well, let's create the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, which then becomes a separate organization, and that organization can donate to other charitable organizations who are working on quote-unquote election integrity, and there is no cap on that. So instead of $5,600, we'll donate $400 million. $400 million. Sorry, I got all Dr. Evil there. They were designed to be nonpartisan, spread across urban, rural, and suburban communities. Still, despite the analysis I've been showing otherwise, I know that some people believe this work benefited one party over the other. My goal is to be neutral and not play a role one way or another, or to even appear to be playing a role. So I don't plan on making a similar contribution this cycle. Respectfully, Mark Zuckerberg. All right, so let me take a sip of my coffee quickly and explain to you what I believe is going on with this letter. I don't believe this letter is just an admission of guilt. Some people have claimed that Mark Zuckerberg is doing this because he feels bad. I'm sorry, Mark Zuckerberg done. He doesn't feel bad. Some people have said he's doing this because he loves, because he knows that there's a whistleblower that could be popping up with some pretty damaging information about his involvement in the 2020 election, and he wants to get ahead of it. That could be true. It certainly reads like that. It certainly reads like he's trying to throw the blame for the censorship onto Joe Biden and the Democrats, and that he's trying to tell people he was mistaken in suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. And all that money he gave to help Joe Biden get elected, he's sorry about it. He doesn't plan to do it again. All of that could be true, but I believe there's something else. I believe there's something else going on. Do you remember when Mark Zuckerberg said this?
Seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that was right after Donald Trump got shot, and Mark Zuckerberg said it was one of the most badass things he'd seen in his life. Correct. Correctly so. That was one of the most badass things any of us. Not only is it one of the most badass things anyone has ever seen in their entire lives, it's one of the most badass things that has ever happened in the history of the United States of America, maybe the world, I don't know. But I will tell you about this letter. This letter, I believe, is Mark Zuckerberg's conclusion, based on all the data that he has acquired, that Donald Trump is about to win the election in November, and the seismic shift in the American political system that we know is coming, Mark Zuckerberg now has proof of. Because Look, the polling data will tell you one thing. The polling data will tell you, oh, it's 50-50. It's neck and neck. It's anyone's ball game. Kamala Harris has really taken a dent out of Donald Trump's lead. If you look at the swing states, Kamala Harris leads in this many. Donald Trump leads in this many. It's going to come down in November. That's what the polling data tells you. And polling data is nowhere near as effective and informative and accurate as behavioral data. And nobody on the planet Earth has more behavioral data than Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and all these other properties that he owns under his Meta umbrella, what they are behavioral data collection facilities. And every day for the last 20 years, you and me and a billion other users have been feeding this machine with behavioral data. We tell it where we go, who we go there with. We tell it when we wake up, when we go to bed. We tell it where we work. We tell it who we are married to. We tell it who we have a crush on. We take photos and we put it up there so they can scan the imagery and learn all about us. Mark Zuckerberg knows more about you than you know about yourself. Mark Zuckerberg knows when you're happy. He knows when you're sad. He knows when you're tired. He knows when you're awake. He's like Santa Claus, but without all the gifts. He knows what you like, what you love, what you hate. He knows what you fear the most. He knows which one of your kids you like better or which one of your dogs you'd save if there was a fire. He knows how much money you make, and he knows everything that you spend it on. He knows your religious beliefs. He knows your political affiliations. He knows if you have a Donald Trump yard sign or an FJB t-shirt or a red hat that says "Make America Great Again." He knows if you've been to a rally. He knows how many rallies you've been to. He knows who you went there with. He knows who your friends are, and more importantly, he knows who your friends are not. This guy has servers and servers and servers full of behavioral data on everybody. And I believe that Mark Zuckerberg has run that information through his algorithm, and the computer spit out the results. And this letter is him reporting the results to Congress and the world. He's saying, Joe Biden forced me to censor stuff and I apologize. But just know, he knows Joe Biden's not going to win. Of course he's not. He's not even running. He knows Kamala Harris isn't going to win. Mark Zuckerberg feels 99,9,000% confident that Donald Trump will win this election. Therefore, he's saying, I don't have to deal with the Democrats anymore. I'm not being controlled by them. They can't threaten me anymore. So I'm going to tell you the truth about them. Also, I'd like you to know that I apologize for suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. That was something that we will never do again. And all that money I wasted getting Joe Biden elected so that he could just pressure me and my company to censor people, I'm not spending a dime. I'm not spending 1 red cent on any elections anymore. Also, I know the Democrats are toast. I know. I've studied the data. I've looked at everybody in the United States over the last 4 years, and I clearly see a shift toward Donald Trump. And now, 70 days out, over 2 months before the election, Mark Zuckerberg feels comfortable enough to throw his allegiance away from the Democrats and toward Donald Trump and the Republicans. Mark my words, these are the results of his scientific simulation of all the data that we've been freely handing over to this guy for 20 years. And he's decided that Donald Trump is going to win. Forget all the other polls. Forget all the other polls. What Mark Zuckerberg did yesterday was predict a landslide victory for Donald Trump. That's what I feel this letter is all about. And maybe when he inevitably gets hauled back in front of a committee for perjuring himself or whatever, maybe they'll show some leniency. I don't know. That's what's going on. Look, I'll be, like I said, in Philadelphia either way, and this will hopefully come up at the debate, but I'm excited by this, folks. I write to Facebook all the time. I have so many issues with Facebook. We're live streaming now to a handful of people. Well, it used to be thousands. Why is that? Okay, we took a couple months off, but still, I have over 1 million followers on my Facebook page. You know how many people see the stuff that I post? Not very many. I know, because I have access to the stats and access to the data. The things he wrote about in this letter that he's sorry about, they're still going on. So let's see if they actually get fixed. I'll be here I'll let you know. By the way, I'll let you know. Share this if you're watching on Facebook. Share this if you're listening on Facebook. If this is a video or a live stream or anything at all on Facebook, share it. And let's see if the algorithm has been corrected. Let's see if conservatives are still getting censored and, what was it he said? Demoted demoted the way that he did the Hunter Biden laptop story. All right. Speaking of Donald Trump and a landslide victory, let's talk a little bit about Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is doing a lot of great things. Like we said, he got the RFK and, should we talk about RFK quickly? No, I'm going to save the RFK hacking up a whale story for a little later on. I want to get back to Donald Trump for just a minute. Donald Trump, like I said, he was out everywhere yesterday. He was everywhere. This guy, he went and he laid the wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier for the 3rd anniversary of Abbey Gate and the explosion that killed 13 American soldiers. Truly great guy. He also went and hung out with some Vietnamese people at a restaurant. He went and spoke to the National Guard. And then at the end of the day, he said, you know what? I'm not tired yet. Let's run by one of these Force 47 campaign headquarters and bring them some pizzas. And that's exactly what he did. And while he was there, he lambasted NBC for being fake news.
I think we're going to do a great job. Who are you with?
NBC, but the pool.
NBC?
Oh my God.
NBC fake news.
Fake news.
Tell me, have you done a story on Afghanistan today? Have you done that story, NBC? You know, the press never talks about Afghanistan, the most embarrassing moment in history. No, but have you done the story? Today is the 3rd anniversary of Afghanistan. Do you know that?
Yep. One more question.
No. Do you know that? That's she doesn't want to take that. Okay, ready? Today is the 3rd anniversary. I just left Arlington National Cemetery.
RFK.
We buried people. We honored people in Arlington, and the press doesn't even cover it because they're fake news, and they should be ashamed of themselves. That's the question you should be asking, not little trivia. I just want to thank you, everybody, very much. Don't worry, you'll never see that. You'll never see that on television.
You got it, Eric?
Yeah, and he's right. He's right about that. It wasn't on television, but that was him. He stopped by the campaign office. People were crying. I mean, imagine this. You're in a campaign office in Virginia somewhere, or Maryland, I'm not really sure where it was, and you're working diligently. You're volunteering your time. You're sacrificing time away from your family, money that you could be earning somewhere else, and you're doing it because you love America, and you want to protect America, and you want to get Donald Trump back in office, and all of a sudden, the man himself walks in with pizzas. Of course you're going to freak out. People were they were crying with tears of joy. They were taking photos. And as you can hear right there, he's in great spirits. He was helpful. He was thankful. He was generous, and he was grateful. So much gratitude. So much, you might say, joy.
Joy!
Yeah, they're at the Donald. You want to see joy? Go to the Donald Trump campaign Force 47 headquarters near you. You're going to see a lot of joy. You won't at the Kamala Harris campaign headquarters because they don't even know who she is half the time. But Donald Trump, he said a lot of great things. And the things that he said were so great, and the things that he's been doing and saying have been so great, that he's gotten a lot of support from Democrats. Not just voters, but RFK Jr., a prominent Democrat from a prominent Democrat party, has become the first Kennedy to ever endorse a Republican for president. Not to be outdone, Tulsi Gabbard said, "Hold my beer." And she rolled up with Donald Trump to Arlington Cemetery and then went to speak to the National Guard, where she said, "I too, a former Democrat representative from Hawaii, former Democrat candidate for president, who lasted longer, I might add, than Kamala Harris, who is the current candidate for president, and now independent, has declared that she will be supporting and campaigning for Donald Trump."
Truth is, as we head towards our decision as a country in November, the same cannot be said about Kamala Harris. In fact, the opposite is true, and we're living through this reality today as this administration has us facing multiple wars on multiple fronts and regions around the world, and closer to the brink of nuclear war than we ever have been before. This is one of the main reasons why I'm committed to doing all that I can to send President Trump back to the White House, where he can once again serve us as our commander-in-chief.
Oh. Pip, pip. Pip, pip, here, here, yeah. And she said, that's what we need. She's urging everybody to vote for Donald Trump.
I am proud to stand here before you today, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. If you love our country, as I do, if you cherish peace and freedom as we do, I invite you to join me in doing all that we can to save our country and elect President Donald J. Trump and send him back to the White House to do the tough work of saving our country and serving the people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate that. And that's Tulsi Gabbard. So Tulsi Gabbard is officially on board. We knew that she was helping with the debate prep, even though this debate may not happen. We knew that, but we also knew she was going to have a larger part in the campaign. And now she's making campaign appearances. She's making speeches, and she has officially endorsed President Donald J. Trump for president, a return to the White House come November of this year. Donald Trump was reiterating, and again, these are National Guard troops that he's talking to. This is a National Guard agency, and he's talking about the military, and he's talking about the support, and he's talking about how important it is. And there's a lot of things that he brings up that not a lot of people bring up. One of them is morale. We talked to our good buddy, Congressman Mike Waltz, former Green Beret. He sits on the Armed Services Committee and a bunch of others, and he always says morale is horrible. What Joe Biden has done is not only weaken our current military, but weaken our future military, because when people see the ridiculousness that's going on in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Space Force, with the gender ideology and the wokeness and the your pronouns are this, that, and the other. I mean, all of this stuff, the pregnant flight suits for pregnant women and men who want to go into combat, it's ridiculous. And it affects morale. And it affects the morale of people, or it affects the outlook of people who may have wanted to go into the military, but when Joe Biden came into office, they were like, oh, I do not want any part of that. And that's something that needs to be fixed, because our recruitment rates are way down.
Starting on day one, I will confront the recruiting, retention, and moral. When you talk about the crisis that you have a morale crisis, because I think it's a country crisis. I think morale is about the leader of the country. I really do. I think, you can only do so much. They have to be proud of their leader. They have to be proud of their country. They have to believe in their country. They have to believe in the American dream. You're going to have a morale problem, and that's what you have. You have a morale problem. We will get critical race theory and left-wing gender insanity out of the armed forces and totally out of the United States military.
I mean, it only makes sense. Only makes sense. The DE&I, the gender problems, it's all adding to more. He goes, you have a morale crisis. I might argue we have a moron crisis too. Yeah, thank you. But it's true. The recruitment for the Army, the Navy, the Air, it's all down 30 to 50% depending on the branch. And that's bad, because China and their Chinese military recruitment, the Chinese military is growing by the day. They're getting more and more advanced with their technology, with their submarines. They're growing their numbers. It is ridiculous how far behind we've fallen. And the people that are in the Army right now, in the Navy and the Air Force Marines, are trying to get out as soon as possible. And the people that aren't in don't even want to get in the first place. And that's a recipe for disaster. And that's something that Donald Trump's going to take a look at. He also, of course, doesn't understand why the veterans, because this is another part of the morale. If you go and if you serve and if you do your time and you come out and you're a veteran, don't you think the country that you took care of and supported and laid your life on the line for should take care of you? A lot of people think yes, except for, of course, the people currently in the White House.
When I take office, I will sign an executive order to stop every penny that Harris has been spending on the shelter and transport of illegal aliens, and we will redirect that money to provide shelter and treatment for homeless American veterans.
I mean, that just makes way too much sense. I don't know how this guy plans to be a politician, because that just makes way too much sense. If we have American veterans who are homeless and we have illegal immigrants who broke the law to come here and they're homeless, why are we giving the money to the illegal immigrants? Why aren't we giving it to the people that went and fought and died, or fought and got injured and put their lives on the line for our country? If it seems like homeless Americans, especially homeless American servicemen and women, who are veterans that are doing their darndest to try to make ends meet and having trouble, it seems to me like, as a taxpayer, I would much rather give them the money as a thank you. Thank you for protecting our freedom. Thank you for protecting our liberty. Thank you for going and doing the job that I didn't want to do, nor am I capable of doing. Thank you for doing that for us. Here's a house. Here's some food. Here's a job. Instead, we're thanking people who broke the law, who pushed through our borders, who trampled over our sovereignty, who pushed their way into our major cities and are draining our resources. Those are the people that we're giving money to. I don't want any part of that. Neither does Donald Trump. And then, of course, not only do we have a morale issue in the military because, well, the people who are currently enlisted are being force-fed DE&I and transgender BS. The people who are leaving are being left on the streets without any help from the government. Not only that, the people who are currently in there are faced with the threat of nuclear war. And that's a morale problem, too. People, some people, sure, they enter the military and they want to go to war. They're excited for battle. But for the most part, you don't want to go into battle. You don't want to go into war. And if you're a commander-in-chief, your goal should be to keep your citizens safe, to keep your soldiers safe. Peace through strength. Build them up. Get them ready to fight. Get them ready to go anywhere in the world on a moment's notice and destroy and defeat any army or military threat with as little damage or loss of American life as possible. That's the goal. But really, if you do that effectively, if you build up the strongest military and the most lethal fighting force, they'll never have to go anywhere. They will be the ones who will be safer than anyone else. That's not what we have right now. We're on the brink of World War III, and Donald Trump knows it.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after I win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled. I'll get it settled very fast. I don't want you guys going over there. I don't want you going over there. And I'm the only candidate in this race who can make this promise. I will prevent, this is for the spouses, I will prevent World War III. Nobody else is going to prevent it. You're going to end up in World War III.
World War III is bad for, well, the world. It's good for the military-industrial complex. It's good for any politicians who may have invested their life savings or own stocks in the military-industrial complex. It's good for all of them. It's good for the New World Order who wants to work together to overcome, whatever it is. It's good for all those people. It's bad for the rest of us, though. It's bad for the military. It's bad for the family, friends, spouses, parents of the military. It's bad for anyone with military-age children. If you've got my son's graduating high school. He's military age. He's got to register with Selective Service. We don't want World War III. We don't want any kind of draft initiated. We want peace through strength. And that requires strong military leadership from the top down. And that means Donald Trump. Because right now we don't have I don't even know if we have military leadership. In fact, John Kirby was on Fox News with Neil Cavuto. And Neil Cavuto basically flat out asked him, hey, is Joe Biden even doing anything?
I'm a little confused, John. I know the president took vacation last week in California after the Democratic convention. He's heading another week to that in Rehoboth, Delaware this week. How engaged is he in any of this?
He's very engaged, Neil. I mean, you know as well as I do, the President of the United States, wherever they are, have access to all the communications and all the advisors that they need. I mean, he was being updated on the attacks over the weekend in real time by his national security team. He was on the phone with Prime Minister Modi today talking about Ukraine. And last week, he made several calls to try to make sure that we could get these ceasefire talks off to a good start. He's watching things very, very closely.
Oh yeah, he's fine. I saw him. He was laying out on the beach in one of those chairs, staring up at the sun. No, he's very engaged. He knows exactly what's going on. He's working on a ceasefire right now. As soon as he finds his flip flops, and because his flip flops got buried, and he's got to dig his flip flops out of the sand. Then he's going to head back up to the beach house, and he's going to work on this ceasefire in Gaza. That's what Joe Biden's doing. Donald Trump, by the way, went to the tomb of the unknown soldier, laid a wreath, and paid tribute to the 13 men and women who died at Abbey Gate 3 years ago yesterday. He went to a Vietnamese restaurant and hung out with Vietnamese constituents and talked to them about their concerns, went and addressed the National Guard, where he got an endorsement from former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard, and then delivered pizzas to his campaign headquarters, where he also got to admonish an NBC reporter for being fake news. It's a pretty full day. If you ask me. And he's not the only one. He's got surrogates. He's got J.D. Vance. He's got Tulsi Gabbard now. He's got RFK Jr., who, man, you thought Donald Trump was everywhere. RFK Jr. is everywhere else. Between Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and RFK Jr., I can't turn my head without running into a Donald Trump campaign surrogate. Not to mention you throw on all of the Caroline Levitts and the Jason Millers and everybody else, Caroline Sunshine, all these folks that are hired by the campaign to go out on TV. You got the biggies, man. They're everywhere. And soon, now that we've added Tulsi Gabbard to the mix, you're probably going to see her popping up on some news shows as well. She may be on one as well right now. In fact, we should probably try to get her on this show. Hey, wait, there's nobody. I forget. There's nobody here. I used to be able to yell at people. I used to have a woman I worked with, and if I ever want anything done, I could just yell at her, and she would write it down. She'd never do it, but she'd write it down. She'd say, "Okay, I'll write that down," and then she wrote it down, and then it never happened. But I don't have it, so I'm just yelling off. And I should yell at Siri. Hey Siri, let's get Tulsi Gabbard on the show. Here's what I found. No, that doesn't. No, not the Tulsi Gabbard show. You know what? Never mind. Oh, we'll figure it out. But where was I? Oh, I digress. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's everywhere. And he flew up to Maine and he sat down with Tucker Carlson. And I know that you have to go. That's the thing about the Tucker Carlson show. It's in Maine and you have to go there because it's in a cabin in the woods. And he sits down at his dining room table and he talks to people. And they talked in depth about the CIA and the involvement the CIA had in John F. Kennedy's assassination.
In your joint appearance on Friday, President Trump introduced you by saying that he plans to, if elected, establish a commission to declassify the remaining documents around your uncle's murder in 1963.
Yeah.
And I think everyone at this point knows the truth, which is the CIA is implicated in that. Those documents protect CIA, maybe among others.
Well, whether they do or not, I mean, it's odd that they've not allowed them to be released.
What could possibly be the explanation?
More than 60 years after my uncle's death, almost 65 years. 62 years after his death. And none of the people who were implicated in that crime are alive now.
Yes.
And the last ones have died off in the last year or two. And so it clearly is to protect the institution.
Yes.
And that's wrong. It's just wrong. And it's wrong for a Democrat and it's wrong for a Republican.
It's just interesting, though, that a bipartisan list of presidents, these 6 decades, have kept those files classified.
Well, you and I have both. I was astonished that Trump didn't declassify him because he promised to during the campaign.
That was Mike Pompeo who did that.
Yeah, and that I talked to President Trump for the first time about that this week. And
what did he say?
He said that Mike Pompeo begged him to, and I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here.
No,
I think he told the same thing to you.
That's
right?
true.
But he said Mike Pompeo called him and said this would be a catastrophe to release these. You need to not do it. And
I want to say again, I think Mike Pompeo is a criminal. So that's my view. He's threatened to sue me for saying that, but I hope he will because it's true.
So there you go. So that's Tucker Carlson and RFK Jr. talking about Mike Pompeo begging Donald Trump not to release the CIA documents because it would be horrible. If Donald Trump or when Donald Trump gets reelected, he will release those documents as a promise he made to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And that's going to destroy the deep state. That's going to begin to destroy the deep state. It's going to take a big bite out of him. Donald Trump is going to go on a purge. The next 4 years, it's going to be a purge. You've got to get all of these bad actors out of Washington, D.C., and you can't do it on your own. You can do it, however, if you have the help of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, if you've got Kash Patel, if you've got J.D. Vance, if you've got all of these warriors for a true American republic, a true Republican form of government that is made up of the people, by the people, and for the people, and not of the elites, by the elites, and for the elites. You've got to get the bureaucrats out of Washington, D.C. Leon Panetta, who spoke at the DNC last week, is a prime example of the kind of people you need to get out of there. And Mike Pompeo, clearly, as Tucker Carlson has pointed out, his dislike for the man is part of that problem. But RFK Jr., he's everywhere. And when you're everywhere, or when you come out and you start serving Donald Trump and his cause, when you start promoting Donald Trump for president, people start talking about you and stories start getting told about you. And one of my favorite news stories about RFK Jr. is this one that came out from, I guess it's his daughter. Her name is Kick Kennedy. Her daughter, Kick Kennedy, did an interview because she was once involved with like Ben Affleck or somebody. I think that's right. I think it's someone famous. Look at this. I'm just going to read you the headline and before I get to the story, because this is again, one of my favorite stories of RFK Jr. And I'm so excited. To share it with you. RFK Jr. once chainsawed off whale's head, took it home, daughter says. RFK Jr. once chainsawed off whale's head, took it home, daughter says, this is from Yahoo News, who, by the way, wrote RFJ Jr. They should probably check that. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. once lopped off the head of a dead beached whale with a chainsaw, according to his daughter. The incident came long before the current Donald Trump supporter and former would-be presidential candidate staged a dead bear cub in Central Park to look like a bike accident as a prank. Some 4 years after doctors reportedly discovered a dead worm in his brain. So what they're doing is they're telling one story that they feel is disparaging, and they're linking in all the other disparaging stories they can. Oh, this time he chopped off the whale's head with a chainsaw came long before the dead bear in Central Park or the worm in his head. The latest revelation surfaced in an interview dredged up by internet sleuths trying to learn more about the possible relationship between actor and J-Lo ex Ben Affleck and RFK Jr. daughter Kick Kennedy. In Kick's December 2012 interview with Town & Country, she recounted that she was 6 years old when a dead whale washed up onto the beach at Squaw Island in Hyannisport. Her father got wind of it, and because he was fascinated by animal skulls and skeletons, he went to the beach lugging a chainsaw, hacked off the whale's head, and secured it to the family minivan's roof with bungee cords. This is the story. True, or I hope to God it's true. I don't know if it is or not, but I hope to God it is. This girl is saying her dad learned that there was a beached whale on the beach, because that's where beach whales are. And instead of, the first thing he does is he runs to the shed, gets a chainsaw, goes down to the beach, hacks off the whale's head, drags it back to the family truckster, Clark Griswold style, and straps it to the roof with bungee cords. That's where it stayed for the 5-hour journey from the Cape to Mount Kisco. Every time we accelerated on the highway, whale juice would pour into the window of the car. And it was the rankest thing on the planet, Kick Kennedy recounted to Town & Country. We all had plastic bags over our heads with mouth holes cut out, and people on the highway were giving us the finger. But that was just normal day-to-day stuff for us. So RFK, and again, I think this makes me like him more. This story, if true, makes me realize that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was always MAGA. He was always conservative. He was always a Trump supporter. He was never a Democrat. He was never one of these elite environmental save the whales type phonies. This guy sees a dead whale and the first thing he thinks is, let me grab my chainsaw. Let me get my steel chainsaw so I can lop off its head, throw it on my car, secure it with bungee cords, and let's be honest, probably a fair bit of duct tape, and take it home to what? Play with its skull? I mean, come on. This makes him more likable. When he was a Democrat, I thought this is just crazy behavior for a Democrat. But now that he's MAGA, I think, yeah, he fits in. Get that guy a red cap. He fits in perfectly. Anyway, listen, we got to wrap it up, but there may or may not be a debate. If there is, I will be in Philadelphia. Fun fact, I'll be in Philadelphia anyway. The debate is scheduled for September 10th. We're going to follow along and make sure that happens. Also, don't forget that we're going to have a Catriot meetup. I have a little Catriot meet and greet coming up on September the 11th, also in the historic Philadelphia area, so you can swing by. And if you do decide to swing by, wouldn't it be great if you were wearing some Mark Kaye merchandise? Maybe get yourself a Catriot shirt. That way I'll know you're a Catriot when you walk in the door. I'll wear my Catriot gear. We can wave at each other. We can high five. We can be like buds. Catriot t-shirts, Catriot hoodies and sweatshirts, Catriot tank tops, whatever you want. They're all available right now at markshop.com. And just like your super chats, which I appreciate, I know I haven't gotten to all of them over the past couple of days, but if you send a super chat, if you send a Rumble rant, we are super appreciative of both of those, and we put them all to very good use, as well as if you buy anything from our merchandise store, you are supporting what is one of the most independent broadcasts there is. This podcast is not just important to me, but I hope it's important to you, and I hope it's important to the country, because what we do here every single day is we look at the headlines, we look at the lies that are being told to you, we look at the letters. Every single thing in this Mark Zuckerberg letter, we knew was a lie when it was happening. And we told you such, and we discussed it, and we analyzed it, and we gave you proof. And we said, these are not conspiracy theories. This is government censorship. This is big tech tyranny. This is a coordinated conspiracy between big media, social media, online media, broadcast media, and the Democrat Party to suppress the truth and try to keep Donald Trump and the Republicans out of office. We knew it then, and now, oh, when you know it, Mark Zuckerberg has just admitted to the whole thing. We do that every single day here. We keep you informed of the truth. We keep you enlightened about what's going on in Washington, D.C. and other parts of the world that could affect and do affect your family directly. We keep you entertained, hopefully, while we're doing it all. Because if you're not entertained, you're not gonna make it this far. So that's my big concern. And of course, we want to keep you inspired. Because if you don't feel inspired to help, if you don't feel inspired to get up and fight, then we're going to lose. So you need entertainment, information, enlightenment, and inspiration. And that's what we do every single day. Because with those 4 ingredients, if those are your 4 daily vitamins that you can get from this podcast, from this live stream, from our videos. So subscribe and share and like and tell Spotify, yeah, keep sending me this podcast. Tell iTunes, yes, I want to listen every single day. Because if you take those 4 things, entertainment, information, enlightenment, and inspiration, and we work hard together as a group of patriotic Americans who love this country, who love this country, Constitution, who love God and all the great things that he's given us, then we will, I promise you, save the Republic. I'm going to go down to the beach and look for whales. But first let me get my